Good afternoon, I'm Mr. Cod, and I'm one half of the PSHE team at St. Christopher's Hall in 2024, and I'm delighted to talk you through the presentation that we will be showing at the RSE Evening on Monday, the 4th of March. This presentation hopefully is going to give you a bit of an overview and an understanding of what PSHE and RSE is, how it's going to be taught at St. Christopher's Hall, and give you some reassurances about how these lessons will be delivered to your child. PSHE stands for Personal, Social, Health, and Economic Education. This gives the children an understanding of the world around them, as well as a deeper look at themselves without using the lens of science or humanities. Some subjects that might be covered in PSHE include friendships and being a good friend, differences between cultures and people, and how we can be accepting of that, personal safety and e-safety, physical and mental health, so taking care of yourself both physically and mentally. That could be talking about diet, exercise, anything like that. Talking about death and loss when they get a little bit older and letting them understand that is a natural part of the life cycle, and talking about RSE, or relationships and sexual education. RSE is taught across the school each year and is a compulsory part of the school curriculum. However, schools are able to tailor the content to suit our school. We have done this by looking at every RSE lesson that is taught from year 1 all the way through to year 6. We are now confident that we have adapted these lessons to ensure that they are suitable for every year group they are provided for. Reception doesn't actually cover any RSE topics. RSE, or relationships and sexual education, is typically taught in the final half term of each year. However, during this time, reception will be learning about family and friends, so people who are important to them in their lives and why they are important to them, and also talking a little bit about growing up from a baby to a child, and perhaps how their independence might have changed since then. Year 1 follows a very similar topic by beginning talking about life cycles. This roughly talks about going from a baby to a child to a teenager to an adult. We're also going to be talking about changes that might happen to them, such as they might get taller, their voice might get deeper, they might get stronger. We're also going to talk about how these changes might happen to everybody at different times, and they're going to happen to you whether you like it or not. The 4th lesson is the RSE lesson that is taught in year 1. This lesson is typically done by showing 2 outlines of 2 children, one boy and one girl. The children will then be asked to label different parts of the body. Which parts do we know? This could be anything from toes, knees, ears, eyes, head, shoulders, anything, but also could include genitalia. The reason why we do this is so that the children have an understanding of the correct names or scientific terms for each part of their body, including the genitalia. This also gives us a chance to discuss which parts of the body really that should be remaining private. As you can see, there is only one RSE lesson in a 6-week block unit. That means that only once will the children be learning about these things per year. In year 2, it follows a similar system of talking about life cycles at the beginning. It talks about how there are some things outside of our control and how we might feel about the fact that we might all get old one day. We also might talk about people who are older than us and the respect we might have for them, how they might look different to us, and how we might change over time. Really, this is about accepting change and how it might affect us. The 3rd lesson really is focusing on being an older child or a teenager and talking about responsibilities that might come with that. That could include talking about chores that might be around the house. It might be talking about some freedoms that you might be given, for example, perhaps going to the park on your own. It could also be talking about independence that you could be giving, for example, like walking home on your own. It's about celebrating independence as you get older. The 4th lesson is the only RSE lesson that is taught in year 2. It is very similar to the year 1 lesson and really is used as a recap of the vocabulary that you might have learned a year ago. Remember, they only have 1 lesson on this per year, so a lot of this is probably lost from the year before. It's also a chance to talk about which parts of our body are private and why they should stay private. We're also going to talk a little bit about what we like being about boy and a girl. Now, this is not a chance for us to compare boys and girls in any form other than perhaps what might be different in the body, and a chance for us to address any misconceptions that might be happening about gender balances. The 5th lesson talks more about touch in a sense of hugs and touches while at school. This could be talking about how sometimes we might really like hugs and they might make us feel comfortable if it's from someone we like. However, we could also talk a bit about how some days we might not want to be touched and it could make us feel uncomfortable. This lesson does two things. First of all, it gives us an idea of being able to explain to somebody else that actually I don't want to be touched today and how to voice that and what to do if someone still touches us anyway. But also gives the children a chance to reflect on their own behavior and think about the fact that perhaps sometimes someone else might not like to be touched and how we might check on them before we hug someone. As you can see, there is only one lesson of RSE taught in year 2 as well. At St. Christopher's the Hall, we want to make sure that the room is a safe place while this is happening, and so certain precautions are going to be taking place. One, there is always going to be 2 adults in the room at all times. This means that there will always be another adult to ensure that there is no going off script and all the content that is provided is appropriate. Parents will always be emailed the date of the session and the terminology which might be discussed ahead of time. This is to make sure that no parents are caught off guard and that you're given a chance to understand what the vocabulary will be that they might come home with. All teachers will be briefed by the PSHA leads on what is appropriate and inappropriate to be teaching within that year group and what questions can be carefully answered. Any questions that we feel are not appropriate for this time, the children will be reminded that there are other people they can speak to and that it's not an appropriate time to ask that question now. Now, these lessons are going to be taking place in the second half of the summer term. You will be aware of these lessons before they take place, and you'll have plenty of time to access the content before the lesson happens. This hopefully means that we can answer any questions you might have beforehand and gives you plenty of time to understand what questions might be coming home. I hope this has reassured you about how RSE might be taught at St. Christopher's the Hall, but if you do have any other questions that you would like to ask, you can always email the PSHE team at mail@stchristophersthehall.org.uk. Thank you.